They're not going to give up now. They can't, because gender ideology is the centerpiece of their entire cultural agenda. They can't give up on it.
So it's not actually the centerpiece of their entire cultural agenda. It's yours, Matt Walsh. It's actually yours. The only reason the left ever talks about the so-called gender ideology or whatever is when they are defending themselves from attacks from dumbasses who disagree with medical and scientific consensus on the issue. Because Republicans are constantly on the offensive about, oh my God, these things that I've made up in my head are happening and that's so bad. The left has to counter that, obviously, so you have to be on the defense for it, and then that causes the impression that, oh, the left is always talking about it. In our ideal society, the extension of gender ideology getting its way is that being gay is seen as being a fan of soccer, right? It's the same level, because like, okay, you're gay, I don't care, cool, man, nice for you, why do I care, you know? So because we live in hell and nothing has changed, things continue to get worse, specifically for trans people. Here we have President Donald J. Trump. I don't know. I used to have a good Donald Trump impression. I'm not going to lie to you. He's now finally dipping his toes into the transphobia. I was curious when that was going to start happening, because the entire party line in the Republican Party has been trans people are bad. They are simultaneously super weak, feeble, and also so powerful that they're going to destroy Western civilization if left unchecked. You know, classic talking points that you may have heard from other kinds of authoritarians in the past. I was wondering when Trump would actually get around to doing it himself, because he actually didn't for a while. He also kind of pandered as being pro-queer in the past by holding an upside-down pride flag that had LGBT for Trump crudely scrawled onto it with Sharpie. We all knew that was a lie. Anybody who took that seriously is a rube and was going to get fleeced by Donald Trump regardless. But anyway, it seems like he's finally wading into it. He's got some competition. If him and Ron DeSantis are the major two people for the Republican nomination that are going to be running for president 2024, then he's going to have some very strong competition, because Ron DeSantis, much like Donald Trump, is also a person that has no business being anywhere close to a seat of power, let alone having any influence on public life in any capacity whatsoever, and is all about attacking the most marginalized people in our society in order to gain political power. So it seems like he's finally doing it. Even though we have seen that despite the overwhelming amounts of money and time dedicated to targeting queer people and trans people specifically as their like campaign issues, that ended up making the red wave that we were supposed to get in the previous midterms turn into a red piss puddle on the ground. Despite that, they're still going all in on it, because that's what Republicans do. They don't like people that are not like them. They like to see them suffer. It gives them pleasure in whatever capacity. It's very clear. So, I guess let's see. Donald Trump finally talks about it. Let's see what's up.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple.
Not very simple. We've already disproven this. The medical and scientific consensus on the treatment of trans youth is that puberty blockers are completely safe with virtually zero negative side effects. They've been used for treatment of cis kids for precocious puberty since way before they were used for trans people. Also, giving LGBTQ youth HRT once they are at an age to do this has also been seen to be one of the best ways to give trans youth the best lives that you can. So it's really simple, funnily enough. Every single major medical organization disagrees with Donald Trump here and the Republican Party here, because, as often is the case, reality disagrees with them as well.
Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth.
So it's a good thing that that's not happening, except for unless you want to talk about genital mutilation when it comes to circumcision, or even female genital mutilation that sometimes right-wingers are excited to talk about because it's often Muslim-majority nations that are doing that. Both are bad, by the way. Both circumcision for males and females, both bad, unless the person that is having that procedure has consented to it, which you cannot do as an infant, which is often when that happens. If that's what you're talking about, you know, then I might agree with you, but it's not, obviously.
On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous.
Wait, so what are these policies? He's not going to tell us.
Process that includes giving kids puberty blockers.
Yeah, but those have been shown to be virtually zero negative side effects and are actually massively beneficial, so that while the trans youth is still trying to figure out if they're trans or not, you give them more time before the permanent changes of a puberty that would happen as corresponds to their biological sex. You allow them some time to interface with medical and mental health professionals and doctors, as well as their parents and themselves, to find out if they're trans and then go from there. We've talked about this before.
Mutating their physical appearance and ultimately performing surgery on minor children.
That doesn't happen. Surgery on minor children outside of circumcision, if you want to go there, it does not happen. At any rate that is anywhere close to what Republicans or conservatives or all of their tell you happens, it does not happen. Oftentimes, they'll talk about double mastectomies, like Matt Walsh, when he went on Joe Rogan, he speculated, oh, well, these trans youth, they're getting double mastectomies. They're getting their breasts chopped off or whatever. Joe Rogan's like, oh yeah, how many do you think that is? And Matt Walsh is like, oh, around 1 million. Then he gets fact-checked, and he's off by literal orders of magnitude. It was only in, like, roughly the thousands, and that's not for prepubescent children. That's for post-pubescent youth, right? Because you can't really do a double mastectomy without the mastectomies being there. It's kind of difficult to do that. So, like, it's not happening.
Can you believe this? I will sign
I wouldn't believe it, frankly.
New executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask...
So that's at any age. Instruct every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. So it's not just, oh, what about the children? What about the children? They do not want trans people to exist. Going through bureaucratic means to cleanse trans people from society is their kindness. That's them being kind to you. If they felt it necessary, they would do other things in order to get rid of the trans people, which is what they want to do very clearly. If you have gotten to this point, you should understand that. And if you don't understand that, you might not want to understand that. I don't know why that might be. Maybe it makes you feel bad. Maybe you're scared, or you want it to happen, but you're too much of a coward to say it. Just say it with your chest. You know, just say it with your chest that you don't think trans people should exist and that you support any measures to stop them from existing. Just say it with your chest. Be bold, be proud, be you, be happy and excited about the positions you believe in. But you can't. Because you're all pussy bitch cowards that need to go through bureaucratic means or use violence to get your way because you feel bad about the fact that people are not like you exist. It's pussy shit. You're a bitch. Anyway.
Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very...
So I'm sure all 50 states will then, after that is passed, ban circumcision. I'm sure that will happen. I have 100% faith that after the Republicans in this nightmare scenario institute such a ban for child genital mutilation, they will immediately stop all circumcision from happening. 100%. Surely.
I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare.
What's interesting about that is that this is contradictory to the actual standards of care that most medical institutions, should they not exist in states that have outlawed gender-affirming care, subscribe to, because the medical and scientific consensus on the treatment of trans people is the gender-affirming care, such as HRT, and surgery for people who are of age, puberty blockers to figure out if a person is trans and then go on to HRT into the future, all this kind of shit. That is the standard of care because the actual experts and professionals that literally research this shit for a living understand that. They've come to that conclusion. Every single major medical association that looks into this shit has done so. So that's contradictory to that.
And will be terminated from the program immediately.
So this is just a way to make sure that seniors that are not in good financial standing or younger people who are not in good financial standing, both of which would see benefit from being on Medicaid or Medicare to get healthcare. If you are below a certain income threshold, you can get on that and get access to certain healthcare, including gender-affirming care, depending on your plan. It would stop them from being able to do that. So it's just a double whammy. You're already poor because people like Donald Trump are weaponizing their hatred of trans people in order to win votes, in order to cut taxes on the wealthy and deregulate for multinational corporations so they can take home more of your money that you help them get by them taking your time and labor and turning it into that value that you get nothing back in return for. And, you know, it is what it is. Congratulations. If you vote for this guy, you are a cuckold.
The more I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children.
What does that mean, victims? Do you mean like the parents of these people? If you're talking about children, because it is not often that children are going to be so-called quote-unquote victims of this, as I've already outlined. So would it be the parents suing? Because that's more than likely the case. Let's say there's like a 16-year-old out there that goes to some LGBTQ health clinic for help, and they know that their parents are bigoted and transphobic and would not be interested in, allowing that to happen. So they go behind the parents' back for that kind of stuff. They end up getting on puberty blockers or whatever, and eventually the parents find out, and then the parents sue, because that money's not going to the child. It's going to go to the transphobic. Like, I assume that's what that is, probably. I don't know that many children are going to be suing, so it's going to have to be the parents in this instance. Otherwise, if it's detransitioners, all of the information that we have on detransitioners is not that the majority of them detransition because they are not like trans anymore or whatever. Usually when people are detransitioning, it's because they don't have the money to afford their medical care when it comes to their hormones and whatnot, or they aren't able to access it because of the people that they depend on, like their parents are bigoted and don't allow them to, or the social pushback for being trans in society where there are transphobic people out there. It becomes too great on their mental health, so they stop transitioning because of that. That is why people detransition. Now, there are detransitioners out there that do genuinely just go through elements of their transition, realize later on that they're not actually trans, and end up stopping their transition and then essentially retransitioning back to being cis again. That does happen, and those people have my full respect. Unless, of course, you're one of those people who ends up weaponizing your status as a detransitioner, quote unquote, in order to try to strip access to gender-affirming care from all people, the majority of which are not detransitioners and are actually very happy about it. Studies have showed access to trans healthcare and getting that trans healthcare leads to drastically reduced rates of suicide attempts and depression and all this kind of shit. General quality of life buffs, all this kind of stuff. Of course, all that is too scary for Republicans, people living good lives and enjoying the bodies that they're in and loving themselves. It's too much for Republicans. You gotta have somebody to hate and cause suffering to in order to feel actualized as any kind of a person if you're a conservative. So that's too much. So if they're talking about so-called detransitioners as victims, that's also not really gonna work for your argument here.
The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich.
So luckily this doesn't happen. What's really interesting is that Big Pharma is actually a piece of shit, and the health insurance industries are also big pieces of shit. Now, if that's your standard, if that's your take, then I am for nationalizing the health insurance and healthcare industry as well as the pharmaceutical industry. Are you? Because if you're not, I am actually more of an opponent to big pharma and big health insurance or whatever. And you're just a fucking bitch because you're just using it to advance your political ends or whatever, right? Like, I'm actually an opponent to big pharma. You're not. The reason why they talk about this, obviously, is the same as it always is, because they need a way to look like they're fighting for the little guy. It's just populist cosplay. Like, oh, look at me. I'm fighting for you because I'm against big tech and big pharma, when they're really not. They're just mad that they don't have control over these corporations and these industries. In their ideal society, they have so much control, they can stop people from getting the standards of care for the treatment of trans people, which is gender-affirming care in the form of HRT, whatever. They want to have control over that, but they currently don't have as much. So that's what they're mad about. That's why they don't like Big Pharma, right? In this instance. If you want to talk about Big Pharma, abusing its power, you can talk about the over prescription of things like OxyContin that I believe it was the Mercer family made bank off of, causing a bunch of people to be addicted to painkillers, which has been a contributor to the opioid crisis and the fentanyl crisis that we've been seeing in this country. So if you want to talk about that, I am for nationalizing the pharmaceutical industry, the health insurance industry, the healthcare industry, like many other civilized nations have done to good effect. I think the greatest country in the face of the earth that's ever seen, the United States, is able to do that. Anyway.
At the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use.
That's also incorrect.
My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding.
So that's interesting. So essentially, this is what he's talking about. So you're a teacher in a school, right? Little Johnny comes up to you and is like, yo, I feel like I'm more of a Josephine and not a Johnny. I say I'm a boy. I feel like I want to wear dresses or whatever. Do you know about this? Because my parents won't say anything about it or some shit like that. And the teacher's like, oh yeah, well, trans people exist. Boom! Pa, pa, pa. The federal agents, the fucking nanny state comes in to the school at that moment, arrests that teacher, cuts off funding to the school, and throws away the key into jail. That's it, right? Like, that's literally what he's talking about. If you tell students that trans people exist and that's okay, and that's potentially a thing that might explain some of your thoughts or feelings in that way, suddenly the nanny state, government so small it could fit inside your child's backpack, comes in and takes that teacher away.
As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers.
So what's interesting about that is that already exists. Everywhere you go, all of the media you watch is going to have the so-called nuclear family in it. One mom, one dad, 2.5 kids, and a dog, right? This is everywhere. It is ubiquitous. It is the norm because it's been that way for a long time. Now, that doesn't mean that if people deviate from that norm, like same-sex couples, that's suddenly aberrant or a problem. You're literally an idiot if you think that, because there have been no studies to suggest that same-sex couples have any difficulties when it comes to raising the children that they have. So this is all still bullshit, as is literally anything Donald Trump will ever talk about, any Republican will ever talk about, any conservative will ever talk about. It's very boring.
And celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique.
Also, you don't really need education to do that. Like, education's already going to talk about this. There's going to be teachers, for instance. Like, there's going to be a woman who's a teacher who has a husband and has a picture of her husband on her desk. There was a recent viral video that went off about this cis woman, I believe, who was a teacher, who was like, okay, kids, do you see how I have this ring on my finger? What does that mean? Oh my God, I'm married. My fiance proposed to me. Wow, wow, wow. That is literally the same thing. If you were a queer person in that instance, if that teacher was queer and like, yo, I'm a woman and this is my fiance who is a wife, suddenly that person is getting the nanny states coming in, locking them away, throwing away the key, stripping that school of funding. Right? Like, you already hear about that, not only from the fact that most people are going to come from so-called nuclear families, and also from all the media that they consume, but also from instances like that. So, like, the idea that you need specific education on that is kind of insane.
I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female. And
those are sexes, though. That's biological sex, my friend. You've got them confused. Man and woman are the words that you're looking for gender, not sex. Nobody usually says they're male when they talk about their gender. They say they're a man, right? But I mean, you would never expect the conservative to be able to understand the difference between biological sex and the social construct of gender, even though the consensus on the issue from the actual experts at hand understand that. That would be too difficult. It would be like trying to teach a fish about breathing air. It's kind of difficult.
Male and female. And they are assigned at birth. The bill will also...
What's really cool about that is that they're already assigned at birth. Even if you get your gender changed on whatever markers, the medical institutions that you interface with will still be able to know your biological sex, because there are going to be some differences in regards to medical care you might need to be rendered in order to get that medical care. They're still going to know if you were assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth. So that really doesn't change anything. All it does is whip right-wingers up into a frenzy in order to vote for this guy so he can cut the taxes of corporations and the wealthy more.
Also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports.
So what's interesting about that is that the rates of trans women in sports are so infinitesimally small to not really matter, especially not at the biggest levels of competition, like the Olympics, for instance. There are also a variety of cis women who would fall under scrutiny and have fallen under scrutiny in the past for having too high rates of testosterone, which is natural for their body, even though they're cis women, and they get discriminated on the basis of that as well. Do they want trans men in women's sport? They don't care about trans men. To transphobes, trans men, trans masculine people might as well not exist unless they can weaponize them when talking about how, these beautiful young girls have been butchered or whatever because of mastectomies or whatever the fuck these people like to talk about, the weird ways they talk about the youth. The focus is always on trans women for a variety of reasons I've talked about before.
And we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parents' consent.
What's fun about that is that your children are not your property. There have been no substantive studies to suggest that a child deciding that they are a different gender than the one they were assigned at birth leads them to any negative consequences except for those that are societal. In that if they have bigoted parents, they might see pushback from that, maybe even get kicked out of the house, be abused, etc., or abuse from their peers around them potentially if they're in a more conservative area. There is no actual studies to suggest that simply being trans or not identifying with the gender you were assigned at birth actually renders any negative consequence to you whatsoever. In fact, the contrary is actually accurate. If you affirm the gender of your child, they are less likely to experience depression, they're less likely to experience thoughts of self-harm or actual self-harm, or even thoughts of suicide or actual attempts at it. So if you are against allowing trans people access to gender-affirming care, or trans youth even from accessing the gender-affirming care that they would get, you are pro-self-harm, you are pro-suicide, you are pro-youth suicide, you are pro-child abuse.
The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent.
Nobody asked.
No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today.
It's actually not true. Trans people have existed for a very long time. We've gone over it in previous videos. It goes back a very long time.
It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago.
Didn't happen.
Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.
Just a fundamentally, mentally redacted man just trying desperately to get his percentages in the polls up above DeSantis, because he sees that in Florida, at least, Ron DeSantis becomes very popular because Florida is a hell state where nobody should even think to move or live in, and if you happen to have the misfortune of being so unlucky as to have been born there, I support any methods that you use to escape. He sees that DeSantis's poll numbers go up the more transphobic he is, so now Trump is getting in on the game. He doesn't actually care about any of this at all. He might think trans people are icky, he might be scared of trans people or whatever, but he doesn't actually care about it in any capacity. He just wants to weaponize the fear of the people in his base of trans people to try to get them to vote for him so that he can continue to pass tax cuts for the wealthy and for the rich, enrich himself and his friends, and continue to fuck you over. So that's fun. And when I say you, I don't just mean my audience. I mean, even if you disagree with what I'm saying here, you who's watching, because chances are you are not a capital owner. You're not a person who owns a business. You're not a person who is the CEO of a multinational corporation or industry, and you are likely a worker who is being exploited as well. He is going to not do anything for you because he never has, except for, I guess, the COVID checks, which he kind of got forced into doing anyway, and normally they would not want to do such a thing. Like, he's never done anything for you. It is what it is. Trump doesn't actually give a shit about any of this. You shouldn't either, frankly, but you shouldn't agree with anything being said in here because it's all contradicted by reality. Also, just as a side note, Donald Trump, who is under investigation for potentially, allegedly defrauding people when it came to so-called election conspiracy stuff and funds raised for it, as well as the methods that were used to try to usurp democracy and undo the Democratic election, where he lost to Joe Brandon. This is Chris Murphy from Connecticut, quote, "It will likely get little to no attention today that the current frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination just told his supporters to start arming themselves for a civil war to overthrow the government in the case he loses." Is Trump being Trump so quirky? So this is Donald J. Trump retruthing. Free Texas 1776. "Then they will have to figure out how to fight 80 million plus. It's not going to happen again. People my age and old. I'll donate the rest of my time here on this planet to do it. And I know many, many others who feel the same. They got my 6 and we are locked and loaded." So you see I've been practicing my think before you sleep impression. Sorry. Yeah, that's probably not good. You know, the person, Donald J. Trump, who allegedly said in legally bound testimony that he wanted to remove the metal detectors from Capitol grounds because he was allegedly aware that his supporters were armed and that they were, quote, not there for him. I'm potentially paraphrasing. Essentially saying that he knew his supporters were there armed, he knew that his supporters were likely to become violent, allegedly, and that he wanted the metal detectors to go away so that Capitol Police wouldn't turn the armed people away. So it seems like Donald J. Trump, a fan of violence if it's for his political ends, unsurprisingly, right? If it's to tear gas and brutalize a bunch of BLM protesters so that he can hold a Bible upside down outside of a church by the White House, then he'll do it, you know? This is not surprising. So now we've got another scum on the boot of humanity who should have no potential proximity to public life in any capacity, nor should anybody take him seriously. Famous inquisitor about the age of consent, Matt Walsh, has apparently said doctors who provide gender-affirming care should be executed, quote, if we can't have that, then prison will have to suffice. So let's see what is up here. I'm so excited. When he's not talking about the dubious nature of the age of consent, he's talking about how doctors should be executed or whatever. Let's see what he's saying.
Trump also says, as he goes on to say, that
so he's talking about this video we just watched.
That he would direct the Department of Justice to investigate hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, doctors, to find out if they've been involved in a cover-up of the horrific long-term side effects of gender transition drugs and surgeries. Now, the answer, of course, is that, yes, they have been covering those things up.
Source, crack pipe. No evidence. Never seen any substantive evidence to support that. You will never see any substantive evidence to support that. It is a complete nothing story, like I've talked about already.
As any genuine and thorough investigation will clearly show, which is why the next step under a Trump administration...
By the way, if they do get their way and they do try to do that investigation, they're not going to find much. They'll probably have to like twist words and legality in order to actually make any convictions whatsoever. It would be like the myriad of other investigations that the Republicans have led, like Benghazi, which led to nothing, all the Hunter Biden shit, which has led to nothing, the investigations into a so-called election fraud that in some cases actually made Donald Trump lose by more votes after recounts and just wasted a bunch of money and produced no actual benefit. That's the kind of investigation you'd be looking at.
Should be to arrest the culprits, the hundreds and hundreds of them, if not thousands of them, and throw them in federal prison.
So he's talking about doctors following these standards of care that all major medical organizations have come to a consensus on vis-a-vis the treatment for gender nonconforming, trans, youth, and adults as well, because Matt Walsh doesn't think adults should be given the individual liberty and bodily autonomy to transition either.
Now, this can't be a matter of simple fines and financial penalties. I mean, that should be part of it. But the only real recourse here, the only semblance of justice would be prison sentences, very long ones. And if it were up to me, we'd go further than that. As far as I'm concerned, mutilating and castrating children should be legally considered a capital crime, and it should...
Yeah, luckily that's not happening in this case, though. If that's the case, then good luck to all the doctors out there that performed circumcision, because you're on the chopping block, my friend. Be careful. If you're a doctor who's performed a circumcision, Matt Walsh might not agree, but I don't know that these children, when they're literal infants, can consent to that kind of thing. I don't know if Matt Walsh agrees with that take. I don't think he does, considering that he's pulled over to the side of the road to talk about the dubious nature of consent or whatever. And also he's talked about on previous programs of his, the fertility of 16-year-old girls is just really fucking weird. His words, not mine. So we have more evidence of that kind of child genital mutilation happening than you will ever find for any kind of surgeries or whatever for children that he's talking about here.
As far as I'm concerned, mutilating and castrating children should be legally considered a capital crime. And
which means that you would meet the death penalty if you were convicted of it, right? Because for as pro-life as right-wingers pretend to be for votes and money, they're really excited about the death penalty for whatever reason. They like giving the state the ability to kill people. They enjoy very much, so-called pro-freedom people really like allowing the state the power to not only craft the laws in an authoritarian capacity, which they want to do, which would meet these people with capital offense and death penalty charges, but also they want the state to have the power to actually do that, right? So like I say, like I've always said, Matt Walsh is just telling it to you in his own words, but like I've always said, the right wing, conservatives, Republicans, going through bureaucratic means in order to do what they want to do in this case, which is they want to eradicate trans people from existence, doing it through bureaucratic means and making it so that people cannot access that healthcare is a kindness to you. Exacerbating the conditions that lead to trans people, queer people taking their own lives because they are aware that that is the case. If they've seen the studies, if they understand the data, they would know that if you do everything they want to do, it leads to more depression, more suicide, even in youths, etc., etc. That is a kindness. Making you do it yourself is a kindness from them. which is why you need to stay alive. Because simply existing as a queer person is a revolutionary act in this instance. It's difficult, but I believe in you. So that is a kindness from them. If it was up to Matt Walsh, I'm pretty sure he'd go even further than what he said in this video. He's already saying that, oh, well, the doctors who've done this, they should meet a capital offense. I'm pretty sure he would also be in favor of just, taking out trans people just randomly, maybe rounding them up into camps, perhaps. Pretty sure he'd be a fan of that. There was a certain inverted triangle of a certain color, I think a previous authoritarian regime that they seem to be fans of used in order to mark people like that for that kind of a treatment. But anyway, this is nothing new. So if you were around for the abortion fights of the past before Roe v. Wade was decided on the Supreme Court the first time, which enshrined a woman or a person's capacity to give birth access to an abortion, this same kind of thing was happening then too. Back when it was a fight about abortion, they didn't want people to be able to get abortion because they do not like women and people who have the capacity to give birth having bodily autonomy. They don't like that. And they know that it is a difficult argument for them to try to penalize women and people who can give birth. They know that that's difficult because then you run up against the individual liberty arguments. And for people who pretend to care about freedom and liberty so much, clearly they do not in that instance. They know that's a losing argument. So they don't go for that. They instead go through bureaucratic methods like banning it through legislation and then also criminalizing the doctors, because that is easier for them to do. It is a more nebulous argument. Well, oh, what about the legality? Oh, what about the morality? It is much harder to just say, oh, I want to punish the women and people who can give birth for getting abortions. It is easier to say you want to punish the doctors, right? That's why they do that. It is a common tactic. Also, targeting and firebombing abortion clinics. It's also a big thing. I was saying targeting doctors in that way. Also a big thing for them. Bill O'Reilly, another piece of shit, degenerate fucking pundit, like Matt Walsh, was famous for this. There was a doctor called Dr. George Tiller, and he happened to perform abortions for his patients. And he, by Bill O'Reilly, was called, quote, Tiller the baby killer, multiple times on Bill O'Reilly, then an incredibly popular pundit for Fox News. Eventually, somebody actually went out and dealt with Tiller the baby killer, quote unquote, and fucking assassinated him. So here's a little bit of history. George Richard Tiller was an American physician from Wichita, Kansas. He gained national attention as the medical director of Women's Health Care Services, which was one of only 3 abortion clinics nationwide at the time, which provided late termination of pregnancy, which is incredibly fucking rare, by the way. So rare. The grand majority of abortions happen super early on. Incredibly rare that this ever happens, and usually when this happens, it is to save the life of the person giving birth. It is not because somebody gets to that point and they're like, oh, well, I don't think I want to go through with this pregnancy anymore. And then they have that happen. It is usually because of medical complications. During his tenure with the center, which began in 1975 and continued the medical practice of his father, Tiller was frequently targeted with protests and violence by anti-abortion groups and individuals. His clinic was firebombed in 1986. In 1993, Tiller was shot in both arms by anti-abortion extremist Shelley Shannon. She was sentenced to 23 years in prison and was released in 2018. Back on the streets. Jesus Christ. Hopefully she's not been hearing any of this shit Matt Walsh has been talking about, because that's suspect number 1 for anything like that. There's a history here. On May 31st, 2009, Tiller was fatally shot in the side of the head by anti-abortion extremist Scott Roeder while Tiller was serving as an usher during the Sunday morning service at his church in Wichita. Killed him in the house of God. Very holy people, these conservatives, these Republicans, these right-wingers. Roeder was convicted of murder on January 29, 2010, and sentenced to life imprisonment. So, just so you don't have any misconceptions about the capacity for pundits' rhetoric potentially having real-world consequences in terms of physical harm to people, not only would, if Matt Walsh got his way through his advocacy for his transphobic beliefs, it would render harm to countless people if these services were banned, which is a form of violence, a violence from the state, a bureaucratic kind of violence, but also literal stochastic terrorist acts happening, like, Boston Children's Hospital, getting death threats and bomb threats and having to shut down service for, I believe, 45 minutes the one time. That's not very good. Libs of TikTok has also had a part to play in that as well. So right-wingers will always deny this because they're too cowardly. They understand their positions are not very popular, and they understand that if they actually said what they believed, they would be looked at by the majority of the general population as the unhinged fucking lunatics that they are. So they will always, we abhor violence, we condemn all of violence or whatever. They know it's happening. They aren't that stupid. They are stupid, but they're not that stupid. Libs of TikTok understands that when she puts a random teacher on blast for saying trans people exist and that's okay, She knows that it's likely that that trans teacher might get fired because of the outpour of outrage from dumbasses, which she's literally bragged about happening, right? Getting teachers fired. She's very well aware that she has actual real-world consequences for the stuff that she posts on her content pages. Matt Walsh is also aware of this fact. They like it. They want it to happen more, but they're too pussy to ever talk about it. Let's see what else he has to say, I guess.
Should earn the prescribed penalty for such crimes. But if we can't...
Like, he won't even say it. He won't even say that he thinks that these doctors should get the death penalty, because that's what he's saying. He said a capital offense. Like, listen to this bitch fucking made rhetoric here. Listen to this.
Go further than that. As far as I'm concerned, mutilating and castrating children
which is
should
not
be
happening.
legally considered a capital crime, and it should earn the prescribed penalty for such crimes. But if we can't...
So it should be considered a capital crime, a thing that's not actually happening, by the way, and has no evidence that it's happening. It's a thing he's made up in his head. And that it should be, you know, you should get the prescribed penalty for that, which is the death penalty. He doesn't want to say that because it's literally insane to suggest it, but he's going to hint at it because he's a bitch. He is a coward. He is a pussy. He's got a glass incel jaw that he hides with his dyed beard.
Can't have that, then prison will have to...
Critical support to all my chin cells out there. Best of luck to you all. You can all make it. Trust.
Yeah, we know that the left isn't going to take any of this lying down. They were so close in their minds to achieving their genderless dystopia that they're not going to give up now. They can't, because gender ideology is the centerpiece of their entire cultural agenda. They can't give up on it.
So it's not actually the centerpiece of their entire cultural agenda. It's yours, Matt Walsh. It's actually yours. And the Republican parties and the conservatives, to the tune of wasting so much money on it that you ignored actual things that people give a shit about, like cost of living going up or whatever else. Instead of that, they focused a lot on this gender stuff, and it ended up hurting so that their red wave turned into a red piss puddle. It didn't really help, but they're going to double down anyway, because they want to see people suffer. For Matt Walsh, this is a holy war that he's waging. It's not like, oh, well, if this is going to get me power and votes, then I'm going to support it, and if not, I'll let go of it. He's literally insane. This has consumed his mind. It's a kind of psychosis. And he wants to see trans people eradicated from society. He wants to see that. It would give him some kind of pleasure, potentially sexually. He's not going to stop. Maybe people in the Republican Party might, but it doesn't seem likely because they seem to think that Twitter is real life and whatever gets them likes and shares on Facebook is actually conducive to winning elections. The Electoral College might actually allow that to be the case. Hopefully not. We will see. The only reason the left ever talks about the so-called gender ideology or whatever is when they are defending themselves from attacks from dumbasses who disagree with medical and scientific consensus on the issue. That's it. Because Republicans are constantly on the offensive about, oh my God, these things that I've made up in my head are happening, and that's so bad. The left has to counter that, obviously, because the right, unfortunately, has a lot of institutional power and can actually weaponize that to hurt people. So you have to be on the defense for it. And then that causes the impression that, oh, the left is always talking about it. When if it was up to the average gay person or trans person out there, if somebody found out you were trans, it'd just be like, oh yeah, cool, I also like soccer, right? That would be the level of like revelation. It wouldn't be this massive thing like, holy shit, that's so cool, let's celebrate it. The only reason it is now is because it is currently being criminalized to be that, which is a completely normal thing to be, queer, right? In our ideal society, the extension of gender ideology getting its way is that being gay is seen as being a fan of soccer, right? It's the same level. Because like, okay, you're gay? I don't care. Cool, man. Nice for you. Why do I care? You know? It's not like we want to make queer people the hegemonic power holders of society and turn this into a queer monarchy where straight cisgender people are subjugated. Of course, that's always what they're going to worry about, though, because that's what they're currently trying to do. Just in the opposite, you know.
They can't give it up without giving the whole game away, which they're not going to do. And so while red states move to protect children from these forms of physical and sexual abuse, blue states are doubling down on the abuse and doing everything in their power to ensure that...
The alleged abuse that has no actual scientific backing to support that it's actually happening. Very pog. All right, what the fuck else does this degenerate have to say?
More and more kids are fed into the, transgender wood chipper.
Oh, nice. That's also a dog whistle. The common talking point, common rhetoric for the how do you deal with these trans people on the far right, like neo-Nazis and whatnot, is throwing them in wood chippers or whatever. It's the common meme that they talk about, that he knows he's dog whistling to that effect. He knows he has a very violent fan base that is willing to act on such instigation. He is excited about that. It probably makes him hard. Anyway, Just to give you more, it's not just that Matt Walsh has a complete and total disdain for his fellow human beings in a variety of ways, not just because they're queer or whatever, but also if you're suffering from drug addiction, or you happen to be a victim of capitalism and you're now suffering in poverty and you're homeless. He also thinks you should be killed. So here he is, Hayden Clarkin, transit guy who I follow, very good account you should follow if you're into urbanist type content, it's very good. Says, I'm just in awe of Singapore's airport, and it's a nice airport. It's looking good. You know, they got trains running through it. It's pretty neat. However, Matt Walsh has seen this cool looking airport and has, because his mind is fundamentally melted and he is mentally redacted, in that his mental does not exist, he is just an amalgamation of culture war talking points. He said, Singapore is able to have nice things in part because they execute drug dealers by hanging and arresting even petty vandals and thieves and beat them with a cane until they bleed. We don't have nice things because we aren't willing to do what is required to maintain them. So apparently the penalty for petty vandalism and thievery for him should be beating them with a cane until they bleed. He thinks that's a good thing. This guy has so much of a disdain for the human race, the human species, that even petty vandalism and thievery, he thinks you should be beaten to the point of bleeding or executed for. He doesn't give a shit about you. He began to double down on this. People are scandalized that I advocated harsh punishments for criminals like in Singapore. My critics are right. Much better to be tolerant of drugs and crime so that every American city looks like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. This is working out great. So you see a bunch of poor people and your first thought is to kill them. You see a bunch of people suffering under capitalism, victims of capitalism, and the inequitable distribution of wealth we have in the society. The fact that we don't take housing seriously, we've commodified it to the point where people are homeless to begin with. You could fix that by decommodifying housing, building more housing, etc., which we do have the ability to do. You don't want to do that. Instead, you want to kill them. See, I've got actual solutions that don't involve killing people. That would actually be helpful. We wouldn't want to execute the people who've turned our cities into a zombie film. That would be mean. Let's keep them alive so that our communities can be unlivable, disgusting hellscapes. Great plan, guys. This dude lives in Tennessee, by the way. This dude is not living in a major urban center. He's living in fucking Tennessee. Maybe he lives in Nashville. Is Nashville a big city? I'm not sure. It's a red state. That's what I know. He's scared of blue states. He is petrified of blue states, of cities. He is absolutely petrified. Here's Sockton left in the comments. The solution is healthcare for all, housing for all, and treatment for all. Help people get clean, and stay healthy. Take Portugal, which decriminalized use and possession of drugs in 2000 to fight drug addiction as a public health issue. Usage down, deaths down. Imagine my shock. Actual data, actually providing a solution that doesn't involve just killing them. Pretty cool stuff, I would say. But no, if you think so little of your fellow human being that the first thing you think of people suffering is to kill them, then you might be Matt Walsh, and you might not be, worthy of moral consideration in any of your fucking talking points. And of course, he doubles down on the bullshit he's talking in this current video that we just went over. Oh, also, he did lead a campaign against Eli Ehrlich, who has helped people get HRT who weren't able to get it as easily. So Eli Ehrlich, who has helped people get HRT in the past who were not able to get it, was smeared by Matt Walsh as being a so-called drug trafficker, and now he's talking about how he wants those people to be killed. So it is not a stretch to suggest that he thinks that the same fate should be met to Eli Ehrlich, which is, interesting. Just outright tangential death threats to another, creator, an activist, PhD candidate, somebody trying to do something with their life. That's just, it's food for thought. Also, speaking of Tennessee, the piece of shithole state that Matt Walsh has trundled his way into, the Tennessee bills are getting worse. Targets adult trans care, prohibits funds directly or indirectly used for all trans care, explicitly legalizes conversion therapy, makes all agents of the state report gender dysphoria or gender nonconforming of minors to parents. So just in case there's a parent out there who's transphobic, homophobic, whatever, any kind of bigoted, who are likely to abuse their children, which transphobic, homophobic parents are, often to do. Agents of the state would have to out these people, these children, to those abusive parents so that those parents could then abuse those children, right? Interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. So I have to go over this shit. There are so many people coming into my DMs being like, yo, Connor, you got to cover this. You got to cover that. You got to cover this. There's so much of it, and I talk about it all the time. We understand that these people that are anti-trans, anti-queer generally do not have any actual substantive data to support any of their talking points. It's literally just their feelings over the facts, and this is the kind of segment that I'm going to be able to deliver. Like, I don't know what else you want from me at this point. I've already covered all of this. Like, the entirety of the conservative movement could fit into my brain for how much I understand their talking points and how much I could rebut them. Like, this is all very old information to me. The only thing that's new is that these things are moving in a worse direction in terms of actual legislation. So sorry, once again, if I come off a little incredulous or whatever. We got another thing. This was posted on February 3rd at the time of filming, literally today. Or I guess technically yesterday, because it's 12:04 here. Ron DeSantis has filed a complaint against the Orlando Philharmonic and stripped its liquor license for hosting, quote, a drag queen Christmas. They claim it was a felony violation. They are weaponizing the state to eliminate queer existence. They claim it's about, quote, sexually explicit conduct or, quote, obscene material in front of minors, but any parent can bring their kid to see a movie like Jackass 4 and see a bunch of dicks and graphic content. They don't seem to be targeting the local AMC theaters. You can literally, as a parent, allow your child to go into a movie theater and watch an R-rated film so long as you have parental consent to do that. It's going to be up to the discretion for parents to do that in that instance. So if there is a drag event that is literally marked as being for, you know, adults, if a parent is going to bring their child there, that's kind of on the parent, not necessarily on the drag event in general, unless you are going to target AMC theaters. So it's pretty fucking dubious to begin with. Also, the majority of the time that there are family-friendly drag events, they are marked as such and are not having any kind of adult content involved with them. It's usually just people dressed up like Disney princesses reading books to kids. This is about dehumanizing LGBTQ people and targeting them for retribution by the state by portraying LGBTQ people as aberrant and deviant. It's all absolutely disgusting and should not be tolerated. To be clear, this is an administrative complaint. These are not criminal charges. Criminal charges would require the local state attorney to file charges. This is why DeSantis removed the state attorney in Tampa. He wants to intimidate them into prosecuting LGBTQ people because Ron DeSantis does not want queer people to exist. He would get rid of them through force if he could. Currently, he's being kind and trying to use bureaucratic means. Rather, the state is alleging that the Orlando Philharmonic committed a felony in a civil complaint. It is possible for DeSantis to pressure the elected state attorney, Monique H. Worrell, to bring charges or face being removed. He already did it in Tampa. An additional count claims that businesses that host drag are a, quote, nuisance. I'm begging legacy reporters to see what is happening here. They are attempting to criminalize speech by reinforcing obscenity and morality laws and thus not protected by the First Amendment. This is fascism. So-called, First Amendment defenders, pro-freedom, pro-liberty people who literally have never been, except for, they want that kind of freedom for white people, for capital owners, and that's it. We've also got from Alejandro Caraballo, 2 DeSantis appointees to the Florida Medical Board wrote a letter opposing gender-affirming care by citing a paper that describes involuntarily locking up a trans boy in a mental hospital for 2 years until they, quote, stopped being trans, which is literally just torturing this boy, which I assume is then a child, right? Literally just torturing them until they stopped, quote-unquote, being trans. These are the so-called professionals, the experts, that Ron DeSantis is appointing to his Florida Medical Board, just to further sully the name of the Florida Medical Board, which is already incredibly sullied for the fact that it has the word Florida attached to it. This is exactly what the end goal is of, quote, gender exploratory therapy, which is just a rebranded conversion therapy, which all major medical associations have considered to be torture. Coercive conversion therapy that gaslights trans people about their own existence. Also, if it wasn't enough, in a dual-pronged 2 birds with 1 stone move, not only to attack the right to people getting abortions, but also to attack trans people, Florida wants to require all female high school athletes to turn over their menstrual data, which can be viewed by administrators. This is downright dystopian. If you're not a person who menstruates, can you imagine if you had a regular bodily function happening and the state literally required you to give that information to them for you to be allowed to do whatever it is that you're trying to do in that instance, in this case, participating in high school sports. Let's say that the state would require a detailed accounting of your bowel movements in order to buy Taco Bell or to volunteer to make Taco Bell food as part of like a school program or something. You had to register your literal bowel movements in order to do that. Small government, everybody. Big round of applause for these small government conservatives, right-wingers. Why do they need the period data? It's a dual-pronged approach. If a person has a capacity to menstruate, then they will be assigned female at birth. So then they would find out if that person is trans or not, because if they were assigned male at birth, they would not have the capacity to menstruate and therefore would not be able to give those kinds of records and therefore would be outed as being trans. And then they would be disallowed from entering women's sports in a variety of these states and the laws that target that in Florida. Also, it's a dual-pronged approach that if there's any irregularity that the state sees in the menstrual records of these people, you might be able to deduce from that that they might have had an abortion or miscarriage, and you might be able to bring down the legal arm of the state, send the cops to this person's house for getting an abortion, and also arrest the doctor for doing it under whatever legislation the shithole state of Florida has put forward in regards to its anti-abortion views, its anti-bodily autonomy and individual liberty views. Very cool stuff, man. So now we have Jack Turbin, who is a doctor, who is literally, it's Jack Turbin's job to look into a lot of this shit. Kind of an expert on the issue. Today, I took a deeper read of Utah's SB 16, the latest attempt to ban medical care for trans youth. First, a reminder, all major medical organizations explicitly oppose this legislation, noting that it goes against all scientific evidence and will cause harm. But there's more. So here's a table for statements opposing legislation to limit gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The American Medical Association, the American College of Physicians, the American Academy of Family Physicians, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Osteopathic Association, and others. Also, the American Psychiatric Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the Endocrine Society and the Pediatric Endocrine Society, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health and U.S. Professional Association for Transgender Health, all have denounced any attempts for legislation to limit gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth. The people whose literal jobs it is to look at the data and the studies on the issue. Of course, right-wing politicians in Utah know better than them because they have races to win and they gotta raise money. This bill creates a false sense of being legitimate by saying it will ask Utah's Department of Health and Human Services to issue a review of the evidence for medical care for trans youth and then provide a recommendation about whether to lift the ban. There have already been reviews by the Endocrine Society and WPATH led by international experts. Utah ignored them because they didn't like the results. Classic conservative move. If the facts make your feelings feel bad, then fuck it. That didn't ever happen. Pure fiction. A review of Utah's HHS will add nothing new. The bill also didn't appropriate any money to actually conduct the review. My best guess is that they will either not ever actually conduct the review, thus leaving the ban in place indefinitely, or they'll create a sham group of conservative Christian quote-unquote experts from right-wing groups like SEGM and ACPEDS that contradict all secular medical organizations, you know, like the so-called experts that DeSantis was very excited about appointing to the Florida Medical Board, that are literally just pro-torture of children. The law is also unprecedented in the realm of health law because it added a clause that people who provided consent for medical intervention in the past can quote-unquote disaffirm this consent in the future. That essentially means that someone can be fully counseled on the risks and benefits of an intervention, provide consent, then if they have a side effect they were warned about, take that consent back and sue the doctor for the known risk, which is kind of ridiculous. Imagine someone's doctor tells them Lipitor is most likely to reduce their risk of heart attack, but there's a small chance it can cause muscle breakdown and kidney damage. They accept that risk and take the medication. Then they get the muscle damage and want to sue the doctor. Of course, under current law, they couldn't do that. But this law creates a situation for trans youth medical care and trans youth medical care only. It's clearly designed to scare healthcare systems into refusing to allow their doctors to offer medical care for trans youth. So this also happens a lot with abortion care, by the way. They will put forward very vague laws to the point where there will be literal doctors who are like, okay, well, if we did an abortion right now, we would save the life of this person, but now we gotta wait until they're at the point of almost no return in order to intervene, or else we might get our licenses revoked, because an abortion is literally the primary way we're going to help save this person's life. We're going to have to allow the situation to get so bad to the point where it's no longer any vaguity in the situation, and then they can actually do it and have a good argument to stand on. It is literally just scare tactics. Overall, Utah's new ban on medical care for trans youth is creative, clever, and extraordinarily dangerous. A lot of effort and thought went into this attack on trans youth. I suspect it won't hold up in court, but time will tell. Regardless, these politics are scary. And yeah, the hope that it won't hold up in court is predicated on the idea that there aren't right-wing ideologues and activist judges on the court systems top down in these states, which has been a project by the Republicans to achieve for a long time. They've currently achieved it through the Federalist Society and a variety of lower courts and also the Supreme Court, which is how we're getting Roe v. Wade overturned to begin with, right? So even, getting held up in court or affirmed in court is not a foregone conclusion. Also, I guess in some potentially positive news in the negative, Petition asks Canada to offer asylum for trans people fleeing the US and the UK. There are trans refugees already domestically in the United States, and there are laws being passed in a variety of blue states that would allow for people to flee to blue states to avoid prosecution for being trans and receiving the standards of care for trans healthcare domestically. But now there are people petitioning Canada for refugee status and asylum for trans people fleeing the US and the UK, bruv. So that's interesting. That's certainly good in the sea of shit we've been talking about if it goes through. It is just a petition. It's not that Canada has decided to do this. Hopefully they will, though. Should it ever come to pass, but hopefully it never does come to pass. But now we've got a whole bunch more, and I'm just going to quickly go through a lot of these. Arizona Bill SB 1698 would ban, quote, dressing in clothes other than your assigned gender because people are assigned a wardrobe when they are born, apparently, somehow. If you're going to be so insistent as the state to be like, oh, well, you have to dress XYZ way as it corresponds to the gender you were assigned at birth, as it corresponds to your biological sex, then you're going to have to provide people that clothing for free because there's no other way to do that. If I'm being assigned clothing at birth, then where is it? Why isn't the state giving it to me? Would ban, quote, dressing in clothes other than your assigned gender while, quote, singing, dancing, and monologuing in public. So singing, that's obvious when somebody's singing. I wonder if whistling would fall under that as well. Dancing as well, and monologuing. Makes me wonder. Monologuing, what does that mean? I feel like you could consider a lot of things monologuing. Huh, in public, even? 15-year jail sentences and sex offender registry if you do this in Arizona. They're just trying to criminalize trans existence. That's it. Is what you're doing right now monologuing? Technically, there's an argument to be doing it in public because I'm on a public forum right now. So I might get a 15-year jail sentence for voicing my opinions on the internet while being trans. So they're just trying to stop trans people from being able to exist bureaucratically. They will try to do it through physical violence if they have to. By the way, the bureaucratic means lead to physical violence, just not direct. So I should say direct physical violence. The indirect physical violence is forcing somebody to get off their medical treatment and essentially forcibly detransition them, which is a very violent process. How would this even work? There's no such thing as biological clothing. They don't care. The vaguity of the laws allows them to interpret it in whatever way they see fit to criminalize whoever it is they see fit. That's it. They don't care about the actual letter of the law so long as they can contort it to criminalize and arrest whoever they want. This would ban cross-dressing Shakespearean plays? Yeah, well, get fucked, I guess, Shakespeare. You fruity bitch. We've also got Idaho, back with its worst anti-trans bill of the year. A new bill in Idaho would jail the parents of trans kids for 10 years if they receive gender-affirming care. This provision applies to anyone who, quote, performs or authorizes. H0071 is one of the cruelest bills yet. So that's not good, and there's a lot more. There's crazy shit going on all over the United States. You should follow Erin in the Morn, Erin Reed on Twitter. You should follow her Substack. You should follow Alejandra Caraballo. You should follow Jack Turbin. You should follow a variety of people that are pro-trans, that follow a lot of this legislation, and you should see what's happening in your state, especially if you're not trans yourself. All you sissies out there, all you cis people who are pro-queer and are allies, you should see what is going on in your specific state and see if there's anything you could do about it. If you could show up at protests, if you could donate to advocacy funds, if you can show up at school board meetings, if you could show up at town halls to voice your concerns with these bills. You should absolutely do so. That is one of the few ways you could fight back. And then obviously past that, also voting for the Democrats are usually going to be the safer bet than voting for the Republicans in this instance through the electoral process. It sucks. But if you can, especially if you're a cis heterosexual person and you're not likely to be the target of these things, though they are, likely to try to attack people who are allies as well, you are currently in the safest position to do it. Be careful out there. It's a good thing to do. In some positive news, we've got Assemblymember Chris Ward introducing the Transgender Youth Privacy Act to protect minors' privacy. So a Democrat in San Diego. Love seeing this bill to remove from public record transgender people's name change and gender marker changes. I don't know why the fuck this has to be public information, by the way. Why should some random average Joe understand this? There are literally regulations in place where if you get a name change, you have to write about it in a partition of a newspaper or whatever, right? What is the reason? Legislators in California are attempting to do just that. Recently, there was a very famous case of someone being outed this way. This is a no-brainer. Yeah. Why do I care about somebody's name change if I'm not, like, directly interfacing with them? Like, sure, like, if it's your employer and you've gotten a name change, well, then, yeah, they're probably going to have to know about that for a variety of purposes. But, like, come on. Anyway, shit sucks. It's not looking good. Of course, it is always possible that we dodge the current bullet that is everything we've talked about in this video so far, but it's not going to happen without effort. It is not a foregone conclusion that they win. It is not a foregone conclusion that they're able to institute any of this, even if they do win. They will try. They will try to do it, but it shouldn't be without a fight. So do what you can with what you have. It's going to be difficult not to fall into despair and hopelessness in this situation, because I am not immune to that either, and this is literally my job to talk about this shit. It's not an easy spot to be in, being a trans person myself. Luckily, I'm in a privileged position in the state that I live in. Not everybody is. A better world is possible. There are people that hate the human species, like Matt Walsh, like Ron DeSantis, like Donald Trump, but not everybody does. There are allies out there. There are friends out there. So keep on chugging, I guess, and be safe. This video is kind of called as Real Chat Hours. Thanks so much for the support. Hope you keep enjoying the goddamn videos. If you'd like to be the next Connor Caller, all you gotta do is follow me on Twitter @ConnorCC. Retweet my video links when they go live. Remember to subscribe to the channel, put all notifications on. Leave a like if you'd like. Comment something down below about how things are not looking too great, but could be looking better as long as we try. And have a good day.